If you watch my channel, it's probably because you know there is something more. Life is not about chasing the dollar. Life is not about wearing this mask to uphold a version of ourselves that our parents or our friends or our coaches or our bosses want us to be. It's way deeper than that. And the greatest sages of all time have tried to guide us on this journey. So if you want to unlock a relationship with life that restores the vitality, that restores the excitement, that restores the peace and connection and confidence and all the things that society has stripped from us, I want you to stay with me as I take us on this journey. Now, there's a reason they tell us to seek the kingdom of heaven first. And I'm not going to take a literal approach to breaking down these things, because I think it's something way deeper than we could have ever imagined. It is beyond all labels, it is beyond all teachers, it is beyond all teachings, and it is something that is felt in this moment. This felt in our relationship with life. It is like a missing puzzle piece was plugged back into our state of awareness, plugged back into our state of energy and our state of being. So if this is something you want for your life and you want to walk a more principled, connected, spiritual way, I'm going to walk you through 3 stages of evolution that you need to go through. Now, the first stage of evolution is that of a philosopher. It is that of reading the neuroscience, reading the spiritual texts, trying to reprogram your subconscious mind. Now, once you realize that those were only tools guiding you to a practice, guiding you to something that you need to do internally, you are ready to evolve to state 2, which is the initiate. The initiate is someone who is starting to live these principles, who is starting to battle test and stress test and get their own unique perspective and wisdom through the application of the teachings, because knowledge is an initiate. Plus experience is, knowledge is a philosopher, right? You're reading the text. Experience makes you an initiate because you're aiming to put these things into place. And knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. And when you have wisdom, you become a master and you start to deepen your understanding of the information through experiential practice, which helps you create this feedback loop in real time where you're unlocking deeper states of awareness. You're unlocking all these states that the greatest sages always taught us. I don't think Jesus, Krishna, and Buddha were walking around reading books because all the books are written about them. So those are the 3 stages you need to go through. And if you want to learn how to walk those 3 stages, I'm going to guide you in this video. I'm going to do it all off the dome because I just think scripts and trying to use someone else's framework and just really strips me of the essence that I think I have to offer in order to guide you on this journey. Now, if you like what you hear, if you enjoy this conversation and you want to be like me and others that are aiming to walk a more spiritual path, a more aligned path, and have a community to support them on that journey, the first link in the description is going to be my Telegram channel. We've got 100 people in there. I message you guys every day. I talk to you every day, and we're having this conversation about surrender and letting go and evolving our states of awareness in real time. Now, I also just started a fresh Instagram. So if you ever want to reach out to me and converse, I've only got 50 followers right now. So I'm responding to everyone, sending voice notes to everyone, just aiming to deepen the connection and build my spiritual community and attract the people that are like me who are walking this journey. So that's also going to be in the description if you want to check it out. Now, let's talk about state 1, where I'm guessing a large majority of you guys are at. And this is the philosopher, right? You are on a pursuit to attain information. And there is a grand trap in this state, which is why it's so hard to get to level 2 and 3. Because I'd say 90% of people are a philosopher, right? They're reading the books on the subconscious reprogramming. They're attending the Joe Dispenza workshops. They're going to church. They're reading their Bible. They're listening to podcasts from Wayne Dyer and recordings along his journey. They're aiming to understand this and intellectualize it, which is what a philosopher is someone that is aiming to philosophize a concept. You're aiming to extract something out of something that is static. So in order to get from level 1 to 2, you're going to have to transition from second degree knowledge to first degree wisdom. And I'm going to tell you how to get there. But let's talk about the things that you need to master information-wise on the philosopher level in order to even be ready for phase 2. Because you need to have a deep understanding of your mind, body, and soul. We are multi-dimensional beings. So that means you need to understand your mind. You need to understand your body. And you need to understand how your soul fits in this entire equation. Now, I always like to revert back to the Joe Dispenza teachings to get a better understanding of our body. And I'm going to just break this down super simple. I've got a bunch of other videos on my page where I break this down in real time. But there's a few things that really stand out to me in Joe Dispenza's teachings that you're going to need to master and have a general conceptual understanding of in order to step into phase 2, that of an initiate, and eventually, after spending a lot of time in phase 2, eventually become a master. And a master is someone that lives this as a practice, that has no incongruence, that is a wholehearted, embodied being that walks, talks, lives, and loves these teachings. First, the thoughts you think and the feelings you experience are programmed into you. But it is your identification with them that makes you internalize it and think that it's you. And when you're feeling those feelings of anxiety, you're feeling those feelings of shame, guilt, fear, worry, because you want to change so badly and you don't want to think negative thoughts and you don't want to have negative feelings, you start to resist this. It's like a tension building up. It's like a ticking time bomb. It's like a chemical pharmacy within your body that is putting you in a state of survival, which is fight or flight, right? This is when our amygdala turns on and we enter this primal state where we're only in this moment and we're only able to perceive threats in our environment. It's like a saber-toothed tiger was coming out and you're like, I don't care what I'm going to have for dinner because I need to survive this threat in my environment. This is where a lot of people are at. People are so burnt out with their jobs. It is like purposeless. I was talking to someone named David who took a huge leap of faith, and I want to give a big shout out to David because he's leaving his high-paying tech job in Austin, Texas and moving to Colorado to pursue a more aligned spiritual community, a job that is more down to earth and integrated, because in America, the issue is that 95% of people live to work. And the only way to properly do something with your life is to work to live, right? To have a more balanced outcome. And he's doing that. And we were talking about how there's a lot of misalignment in what society and the Western world sells us. And because it's so misaligned and we're just allowing the blind to lead the blind, people are kind of just casualties to this way of life, right? The subconscious is programmed to fit in this worldview that is sold to us by Western civilization, where you need to make more money so you can hop on more payment plans to buy things to impress people you don't even care about. It's like that Tyler Durden quote from Fight Club. And when you do this, eventually you have moments of awareness where you're like, holy fuck, like what is the entire point of this? Because it's clearly not to keep working, to keep buying things, to be on this rat wheel and die. And not only that on an experiential level, but on a layer deeper, it's like I'm suffering. I can only think negative things because I just am so upset with what my life has come to. I can't deal with the anxiety, stress, shame, guilt on the inside, so I only numb it through smoking weed and through drinking alcohol and through meaningless sex or through doom scrolling and running away and not thinking about it and compartmentalizing it. And the only reason I can verbalize this is because I lived it. When I was making $200,000 a month and I had a $5,000 apartment and I was taking freaking $10,000, $20,000 trips to Tulum, I never felt more empty. I had all the success. For 24, I had a team of 13 people that answered to me. I was making over $200,000 a month in one of my offers. I lived in a high-rise apartment. People would come over and be like, oh my God, what do you do? But that just kind of alienated me. And like one thing you realize about getting to the top of the mountain is that you're actually more lonely there. Because there's no one that would even remotely understand the things you go through on a daily basis to maintain this level of success. And that's, I'd say, one of the core traits that I share with a lot of my clients that I work with. Two people come to mind specifically, so Mike or Matt, if you're watching this, a big shout out to you. But these guys are super they're super successful in their respective fields. One's been in real estate for decades, does really well for himself. One's in mortgage banking, does really well for himself. And they said they just got to this place in life where it'd been multiple decades and they built a cage to maintain this lifestyle that they just weren't aligned with anymore. So they started reading the Joe Dispenza. They started listening to my YouTube videos. They started listening to podcasts and starting to put this information into practice. And some of the biggest takeaways is like, okay, if this version of me is running on autopilot, if I've been doing it for decades and it's the thing that keeps me stuck, how do we change? Well, now that we know your thoughts and emotions create this loop where your neural pathways are wired to think the same negative thoughts and have the same doubts about your ability to create a new life for yourself, and realize that that certain meal that you lean towards, that certain type of beer, that certain type of YouTube video that gives you comfort are all like patterns in our mind. How do we change that? Well, you need to realize that your thoughts are manifesting out of the feeling you have. So that feeling of doubt about your ability to change your life, that feeling of anxiety because you're so burnt out on what you have and you just need it to change now, is the emotion that is a trigger that sets you into action, right? So once again, this is just information. You don't even need to take notes because it's not even the practice. This is where a lot of people get stuck, and I'm sure you're in a similar boat where you're like, okay, Grant, we've talked about this 101 times. What's the change? Well, I'm going to get to the change because once again, we're going from philosopher to initiate to master. So be patient with me. But when you start to realize that you're just having this inner experience, it validates one of the biggest things that Joe Dispenza talks about. And through the study of quantum physics, we learn, okay, there's this electron cloud. This electron cloud is the fabric of all particles and matter that make up all the things we can see, touch, and feel. Now, there's something unique that happens on this quantum fabric level, and the electron cloud is phasing in and out of material and immaterial, because in the immaterial, it is a wave of potentiality. It is energetic potential. It holds a frequency that will manifest into physical matter when it is observed, right? This is the observer effect. So the immaterial matter and potential is collapsed into a physical, observable experience through awareness, right? So even though you're telling yourself you want to change, even though you're telling yourself you know you're burnt out on your job, even though you're telling yourself you can't keep eating like shit and you can't keep disrespecting yourself through giving in to your impulses and these animal-like, instinctual, pleasure-based actions, it is the act of observing that as your identity that is recreating it. Because you're visualizing this version of yourself that is, we're just going to call it negative Grant. Because I'm so focused on negative Grant, I'm actually using my universal currency of my focus, my time, and attention to revalidate in that inner energetic world that is the only place of inputs that I have control over, which manifests as the effects. Because I'm ruminating it on my thoughts, ruminating it in my emotions, I've already kicked the dominoes into place by engaging with those thoughts and emotions. So the actions, the behaviors, the things that I want to change in my everyday life are already falling as a product of my inability to not maintain my inner world. And what the whole thing about the electron cloud and potentiality manifesting as material is to realize that mind and matter, mind, immaterial, matter, physical matter, they're interwoven, right? If you're having the shame, guilt-ridden experience because you're cheating on your diet at 12 p.m. snacking, and you wake up the next day and you wanted to get up at 7:45, but now you're rolling out of bed at 9:30, and now you don't have energy because you have brain fog from the food you ate, and you don't have the motivation because you're internalizing and being weighed down by this negative energy of shame that you don't even end up going to the gym. No wonder it's so hard to grow from this. Because we're so focused on the world of effect. We're so focused on the matter, right? We're so focused on the things we can see, touch, and feel, but that's not the reality. So The philosopher, the one thing they need to realize is that the inner world is the only dependent variable. Is that right? No. The outer world is the dependent variable, and the independent variable is the inner world. The inner world is the only state that we have control over. And my roommate's pulling up on his badass motorcycle because he just fought in a Muay Thai fight right now. So if that's what you hear in the background, shout out Jackson. If you're watching this, more power to you, champ. 1-0. The whole point of the mind and matter conversation is to realize that it is our fixation with the things in the outer world preventing us from changing the inner world. And because the things in the outer world don't change, they serve as impulses and triggers in the form of people, places, and things, revalidating our inner identity and our attachment to the thing that we're trying to run from. So that's my whole educational spiel. These are things that you need to understand. These are things that we go through in my ascension protocol with my clients. When you can truly understand this, you're ready to step into phase 2. Now, how do we step into phase 2? Well, there's a bridge that needs to be built. Just like the electron clouds goes from potentiality to matter, that's what we're going to do to go from philosopher to initiate. Because the philosopher is starting to read the Joe Dispenza, starting to understand the energetics, and has consumed enough information to be able to regurgitate the knowledge. But what we're looking to do is create something that is an intrinsic, experiential transformation, because the only way to move on from the negative things, the negative thoughts, the negative emotions, the bad identity we have of ourselves, the negative grant, is to surrender and let go. That is what I like to talk about on this channel, because it's the thing that I've realized is the only answer. And it makes a lot of sense, because if we're holding on to this negative version of ourselves, that's attachment, that's control, that's identification. So we need to take a deep breath and let go, because when we let go, we open up the potentiality for something new. So the only thing we need to be doing in our inner world is surrendering and letting go. Whenever we experience anxiety, shame, guilt, and fear, you need to make peace with it. You need to accept it. You need to realize that that too is part of your journey, and that to get to the state you want to go, these A, B, C, D steps that you need to go through. And that first day was really hard to overcome your nicotine addiction, and you experience a lot of shame, anger, guilt, and fear. By day 14, you're gonna experience the same thing, except it's just gonna be easier. What they say is life doesn't get easier, you just get stronger. So this is all part of the process, and realizing that there isn't like one key that just immediately transforms your life. And it is found in the surrender. Like the only way we're actually going to be able to move on from this like cause and effect world is to step into something grander. And this is where the initiate starts to practice something different. They have to move on and let go and surrender the teachings in order to engage with beliefs and engage with the philosophy that is an inner experience. Now, this is where I like to bring the topic of God into the conversation. And I'm not going to tell you which God to believe in, but there needs to be a higher power that you bend the knee to. Because if you do not bend the knee to a higher power that is all-knowing, all-present, and all-powerful, then you are going to think that you are the creator. No, we are the creation and the creator. And it is naive to think that we have the powers of God. Don't get me wrong, we are divine beings, and we are blessed with our ability to change. We are blessed with our ability to engage in metacognition and observe our thinking. But it is that act of believing and internalizing that concept of self that is going to keep us stuck. When you start to believe in the subconscious reprogramming as law, when you start to believe in the neuroscience as law, when you start to believe in all these things that like place the weight of transformation on ourself, that's when shit goes south. And that's why the philosopher gets stuck. So if you're stuck on your journey and you aren't experiencing the things you want to experience, it's because you're still placing reliance on these external teachings. And that's the trap, right? It's no longer something that is going to be able to be intellectualized. Because when you intellectualize it, the only logical thing that makes sense is to let go. It's so complex, the only thing we can do is let go. That's what the philosopher goes through to step into the process of being an initiate. And it's this back and forth practice. You're going to go try and be an initiate, and you're going to put some stuff into practice, and you're going to have a new layer of knowledge. And then you're like, oh my God, this knowledge is insane. You're going to double down on it. It's going to recycle you back to the philosopher stage where you learn more. Then you're going to go initiate, and you're going to go practice more. And the practices that you're going to have to be engaging with are learning to experience the act of meditation and observation and increasing your level of self-awareness in real time. Those are like 3 versions of the same thing. In meditation, you're increasing your level of self-awareness, because when you start to realize that those thoughts in your head are just these trains of thoughts that are like impulses that are trying to take you in 101 different directions, you're going to be like, oh my God, I'm sitting here aiming to experience nothingness, experience stillness, and I still can't help but think about that email that I remember that I need to see to send a contractor that owes me $5,000. Or when you wake up in the morning and you're like, why did my mind immediately go to this thing that I just should not be thinking about at 7:17 in the morning, right? You start to realize like, okay, maybe these thoughts are not me. That is an observation. Through continuous observation, we experience more self-awareness. Self-awareness is the process of realizing who you are not. When you realize who you are not, the thing that you are stands true more effortlessly. Because if it is who you are, it is a state of being that needs no sense of force or illusion or false maintenance to maintain. So the whole process of self-inquiry and aiming to better understand ourselves and engage with these teachings as a philosopher is so we have a toolkit to better understand ourselves and decipher who we are and who we are not. Because the whole cycle of a philosopher to becoming an initiate is to let go of who we are not in order to better understand who we are. And when we truly understand who we are, to where it's a self-arising, intrinsic experience that is guiding us intuitively in our everyday life, we are going to be one step closer to becoming a master. And I cannot tell you with full conviction what it is like to be a master. I'm on my path, I'm an initiate, and I'm aiming to grow in every pillar of my life with these teachings. In my business, in my fitness, in my health, in my relationships, in my sense of self-worth, right? In all these different pillars, I'm aiming to apply these timeless teachings, because we should not have to live a life that requires a false sense of maintenance, a false sense of self, or an ego, or an identity to maintain. And the only way we do this is go through this process of ego death that is the entire purpose of the initiation. The initiation is engaging with practices that are going to continuously expose the false version of yourself, or the shadow that Carl Jung talks about. And I had this realization the other day. I'm like, oh, I know why he calls it the shadow. Because we are out of alignment. When we are out of alignment, and there's 2 versions of ourselves fighting, I'm just going to go like this. You see, that's one version of ourselves. That is alignment. Misalignment. When there is misalignment, you see how there's a shadow on the back finger? It's because we're out of alignment. But when we are in alignment, there's congruence, where our thoughts match our emotions, match our actions, match our behaviors, match our life decisions. But incongruence is the act of engaging with the shadow. It's saying, I know I shouldn't smoke weed, and then smoking that joint. It's the act of saying, I know I've had a cheat week and I should probably stop, but here we are on day 10 still getting gas station snacks, right? That is something that fuels the shadow. It fuels the discrepancy in your identity. And the reason we experience tension is because of that misalignment. Because we know there's a version of ourselves that we are called to be through our relationship to the higher states. Our higher self is giving us a path that is leaving us breadcrumbs to succeed and to thrive. So in order to better hear this alignment, in order to better experience this intuition, in order to unlock a more effortless, flow-based state of living where you don't need to intellectualize it or think about it too much, we have to engage with the process of initiation, which is the act of practice, which is the act of making decisions in alignment with your higher self, even though it's hard. Even though that unconscious program is fighting back, even though that joint is speaking to you right now, even though you so desperately want to make more money and achieve more success and unlock more from life, it is the act of engaging with that higher principle because you need to be able to submit to something grander than yourself. That's the entire transformation. Self-mastery is submitting the false self to the true self. And that is what the process of initiation is. And through this initiation, when you congruently practice and engage with these high-level teachings and these high-level principles and fill it with your life and let go of the things you are not and align with the things you are, you're going to be able to find an alignment where you are one with life and you experience this state of peace and unity. And there's not a version of yourself that you've discarded and hid from the world, causing a bunch of tension and anxiety and suffering because you're shameful of it or you experience guilt, but it's something you made peace with and you found love and purpose and empathy and sympathy in that process. And when you can truly master that, and you truly, in this moment, the only presence we have, find a level of acceptance and a level of peace in who you are, and a level of confidence and purpose in making decisions in alignment with that highest ideal. I hope that you all one day will become a master in your own regards. And it's not being able to say, I'm a master like Jesus, a master like Buddha, a master like Krishna. No, because they mastered their own story in their own regards. That is why we hold them in such high regards, because Jesus is Jesus, Buddha is Krishna is Krishna. Just like Grant is Grant. So if I went to try to be one of those three, then I'd be messing up the entire process, because it's about authenticity. It's about me realizing that my relationship with weed and the partying that I used to numb myself with when I used to try and fill the inner void I felt with success is my story. It's something that I can find peace in and compassion and purpose and share with you guys to hopefully give you a message that resonates. Because when it resonates, you feel it on a deeper level, beyond the noise, beyond the labels, beyond the false identities. You're like, damn, Grant's living this entirely different life. He got rid of everything he owned and moved to Mexico. And he talks about spirituality on the internet. Now, while that may not be what I want to do, I see that he's living his authentic journey. And hopefully that serves as inspiration for you to live your authentic journey. And this is a practice. It is not easy. And I'm going to tell you that right now. And there are 3 things that you are going to need on your journey to master the evolution and 3 stages of development. 1 is community, right? You need people on this journey. You need people that you can collectively learn with. Because if you try and do it alone, you adopt the identity of self. And that identity of self carries a lot of weight. Because when you fuck up, you're gonna be like, oh my God, it's all my fault. But when there's 20 people, 100 people in the Telegram chat just like you and you mess up, you're gonna realize you're on the same path as them and they're experiencing their battles in their own ways. And it's going to give you courage to continue in service of the collective because they inspire you and you inspire them. So number 1, community. 2, principle. You need to develop a set of values and high-level principle to bend the knee for. It's intuitive because it's programmed into us. But the way to engage with the principle is 1, to put it into practice. 2, consume media that makes you feel it. It's something you're gonna feel internally. It's something that's gonna set you free. It's something that's gonna make you feel expansive. And you take those principles that open your mind and open your heart and restore your energy and you start to live them. Because I'm telling you to be compassionate, but if you are not compassionate to yourself or others, then you're not experiencing the whole point of it. When you mess up, that's okay. When someone says something that hurts your feelings, that's okay. To both parties. To the fact that someone was so upset with themselves they needed to stab you with their words. And the fact that your ego was butthurt by it. That's okay too. Think about it. That's what sets you free. It's not being like, oh, I wish that never happened. They shouldn't have done that. They're not allowed to do that. You can't control anything about this life. You can only find peace in what is and that acceptance. And when you have community and you have principle, then you have purpose. That's the final portion of this. A false sense of purpose is success, money, achievement, clout. But a high-level purpose is self-mastery, It is self-actualization. It is developing a relationship with yourself in which you're sovereign, in which you no longer need to rely on the teachers, the teachings to get you through it, because you've developed such an aligned form of principle. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those are the 3 levels that you need to evolve through in order to seek the kingdom of heaven first. And those are the 3 things that you're going to need on your journey: community, principle, and purpose. So I hope this resonates. I hope this hits home for you. Make sure to check out the Telegram, the first link in the description. Follow me on Instagram, send me a DM. I'm responding to literally everyone. And if I respond to you, let people know in the comments that we're just chatting and hanging out. I'm going to be getting ready to open up Ascension again, because I really think I've evolved as a person, I've evolved as a coach, I've evolved as a leader. My principles and my protocols have evolved to actually be able to generate this state. And I hope that's something you're able to pick up, because I'm aiming to put it down. So keep an eye out for the Ascension 5-day workshops coming back. Keep an eye out for the Ascension coaching. And I'd love to take this a step further and build our community out. Maybe even do a retreat out here in Mexico with a few select individuals and really put these teachings into practice. And hopefully I can be a catalyst and a source that really introduces you to this way of life. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got nothing but peace and love for you. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.